Hi, everyone. Welcome back to Creatively Crafted Life. My name is Melanie, and it is time for another conversation with Nikki, who is hiding off camera on me. she is, there we go.
Happy Halloween!
She dressed up for the occasion. She was all
I
cryptic,
did.
and I'm like, what did she do to herself?
Yep. So I am in my Halloween costume for my family since it's PG rated. Kiki's Delivery Service is one of my favorite anime movies, and I thought I would be Kiki.
Very cool. Very cool. So did you actually cut your hair?
No, this is a wig.
Okay.
I
I thought,
was thinking about dyeing it black, but I had such a traumatic experience with dyeing my hair blue that I didn't want to do that again.
fair enough. It looks really good because I could have believed it was your real hair.
Yep. This is actually an emo wig that I got from Savers, which is like a thrift store.
Oh,
And I
that's
just ended
awesome.
up parting it.
Yeah, that's awesome. That's awesome. So are you already starting your Halloween celebrations?
Well, I've
So
been celebrating all month long with October Daily. And so I thought it'd be fun, since this is like the only time you see my face, to actually dress up.
I think that's awesome. So did you dress up in full costume or just the head and bow?
So I am actually wearing the dress that I'll be wearing for Halloween. I need to find a broom, but I've got a bag as well that goes with it. And then my son is going to be the little cat, and then my husband's going to be the boy in the movie. So,
Oh, that's awesome. That's awesome. I love when families do the kind of themed costume idea. I think that's great.
yep, we went as Pikachu, Misty, and Ash last year.
Oh, fun, fun. Did you take? Okay, that was a dumb question, Melanie. Of course, you took photos.
Oh yeah, lots and lots and lots of photos.
And have you documented it already?
I have. Yep. I am pretty good at staying on top of my stories, but today we're talking about untold stories, right?
That's right. So we actually just started a little slide conversation before we signed on, and Nikki was like, I don't know I don't know what I'm gonna say here because she's up to date on her scrapbooking. So maybe we'll come up with some stories that she hasn't thought about that perhaps she has to tell.
Yeah, that would be so much fun. Let's do it.
Okay, so for today's session, we're going to start off just talking about general ideas of stories that perhaps we haven't told and maybe why we haven't told them. And then on Wednesday, we want you to head over to Nikki's channel. Her link is in the description below. And we're going to talk about some strategies and ways to get those stories told.
Yep, exactly. So exciting. So, Melanie, this was your brainchild. What kind of stories have you not told?
I've been doing a lot of thinking and reflection on just my life in general. And I don't know if it's because I turned 50 this year or what, but I've just kind of, thought back over my life, and I was just kind of thinking, about different things that have happened. And I connected that, of course, always to scrapbooking, right? And so this whole idea of I've got big gaps in my storytelling, not to mention the fact that I'm stuck in 2011, but it's my scrapbooking because I am far from caught up. But it was interesting to think about things like my childhood, for instance, where I haven't documented any of it. Scrapbooking kind of surfaced, or scrapbooking's been around forever, right? Like they did it in the Victorian age and stuff. But like scrapbooking the way we know it today probably surfaced around the early 1990s. At least that's when I was introduced to it, which I was graduating from high school and moving into my university years. And I know, and Nikki's like, and I was barely born.
Yep.
So
I just say you look amazing. I had no idea. I thought you were in your late 30s. Not gonna lie.
oh wow, oh wow. Well, thank you. It's the camera. It blurs all the wrinkles. Those bright lights, they help, that's for sure. So anyways, that's what I was thinking. And then I started thinking about other stories that perhaps people haven't told, and some that I have and how I've dealt with them. So I kind of divided this into a few different categories. We'll talk about the most obvious one, which are difficult stories. We all have these in our life, whether it's a story relating to someone passing, or a story that has a lot of significance in our life. And so I'm calling this general category big emotions, right? So we feel very emotionally connected to that story, and to actually sit down and scrapbook it can be difficult, right? It's either going to surface emotions that are hard to deal with, or you become so overwhelmed with emotions that you can't process them, or you're not ready to process them. And I think most of us would, I would say, would have some of those stories in our arsenal that perhaps we haven't told. And I know you've actually been really good and have tackled some of your harder stories, or at least works in progress.
Yeah, definitely works in progress. I finished my son's baby book, but I'm trying to go back and document the caring bridge that I had for him. And that's getting harder. And so I got to a point where I just haven't been able to move past it yet. Emotionally, I am totally not ready. And it's been 3 years, like just not ready yet, you know?
Yeah.
And that's
and
just
that's
what it
okay.
is.
And that's okay. But we'll talk about that on Wednesday's call, about how that is okay. And that, you know, time is okay. It's okay to give things time. So the other big emotions, things like I've heard people say is, oh, I haven't documented my wedding, you know, because it just was such a momentous occasion, and they're afraid that they're not going to document it properly, or that they'll be disappointed, or they've turned the pictures into something so big that there's nothing they can do that they think they won't ruin those pictures with. So I don't know. Have you documented your wedding?
I have, but I also hired my photographer to do just like an overview book. So I feel like that part's done. My goal is to just tell like the untold stories, you know, the little things that happen. Yeah. The little things that happened during the ceremony that weren't really caught with the photographer's photos.
Right. So see, you do have some untold stories. I knew it. So can you think of any other big emotion kind of stories that perhaps someone hasn't tackled?
I can think of a couple. So graduations, I don't know, high school, college, like those are big momentous occasions. I still haven't documented my college graduation, but I just recently did my high school graduation.
Okay, that's true. And it's been how many years since high school for you? I'm not going to say, because everyone knows it's been quite a few years.
I graduated 2010 from high school, 2015 from college.
And so you just recently scrapbooked it. So that's interesting. We'll have to talk about what triggered you to scrapbook it at that point in time on Wednesday's call. I was thinking other ones too that could be like your birth in a family, right? So your baby's birth. A lot of times people start scrapbooking because they have children, and so they feel that need to document their child's journey. But I've also heard people say that they are just overwhelmed with photos. And so, you know, they don't know where to start, which is actually a different category of untold stories, which is what I'm calling the photo issue. So in this case, you either have too many photos or you have no photos.
Yep. It's so funny. I feel like photos have been a really strong challenge for you lately. Like you don't want to print them, you don't want to organize them, you don't want to scrapbook them. Like they're a big issue for you lately. What's going on?
They are. Yeah, photos. I don't know what it is. It's not fun. I think that's really what it comes down is I don't enjoy the photo like I enjoy taking the photos. I just don't enjoy the photo organization, photo printing side of things. In some ways, I'm feeling nostalgic for the days of film where you just had no choice, but you dropped the film off and they got printed and you were done with it. And you had what you had, and you got what you got, and you know, you made the best of the situation. Whereas now I feel like, do I print it in 4x6? Do I print it in 3x3? Maybe I want a 2x2. How about enlarge it? I can print 12x12. How do I know what size to print? And I don't want to spend a lot of money on something and then not use the photos, right? Because that's one of the selling features of digital is you can print just what you want, right? But then that also means you got to go through all the photos to figure out which ones you want to print, because of course now we don't just take one photo of something, we take 15 of the same photo, all from different angles, because one might be the masterpiece.
Okay, so I totally get it, but I end up using Free Prints, which is an app on my Android, and I get 85 free prints a month, and I just have to pay shipping. And I choose to do 4x6. Now, I do that because you can always cut off the excess with 4x6. You
Which
can
is totally
all
true. Totally
yeah,
true. Because I did that before when I got them printed, right? I just made it
yep.
more complicated in my head. Sorry, I cut you off.
No problem. The other thing I like about Free Prints is that you can get glossy or matte. I really like matte. It's so much better. Melody agrees with me. And then
Absolutely.
the other thing that they do is you can have the option to print the date and time on the back of the photo. So I've noticed that people print all of these photos and then they have to search their computer for that photo and then put the date and the time and all that stuff on the back when it's already printed on the back of the Free Prints photos.
Wow, that's awesome. So it just pulls it from the data associated with the digital image on your phone or whatever, right? Like that's what it's pulling. Okay.
Yep. So
Cool.
it is kind of creepy. Like I got to be careful I can't show the back of mine because you'll know where my house is.
But that's awesome. That's awesome. So freeprints.com.
It's an app. So it's just Free
Oh, it's an
Print.
app. Okay.
Yep.
Okay.
It's an app. And if you use code, I think it's IHUS 1, like the number, you get 5 free prints additional.
Okay. Awesome. Well, I may have to check that out. I think now too that I've moved almost to predominantly using my phone, that should also help. Because for the first probably up until a couple years ago, I was still using my digital SLR. And so that was another added component of it, because of course you'd have to download it off the SD card, and then of course it's not on my phone. So apps and stuff. Anyways, I'm sure others can relate to me. I am not the only one experiencing this issue. I'm sure.
Yeah, I'm so thankful that phone cameras are the good quality that they are now, because I don't think I could handle another camera. Like carrying something around to a new event is just too much for me. I have to keep it simple.
Right, right. So do you print like right away? Like you do your 85 prints a month, or do you have some sort of system that you download, or maybe you use some of these programs that automatically sort your photos and stuff like that? I don't know. Like what do you do for photo organization, I guess is what I'm trying to say.
I have a binder that has all of my photos, make sure they're dated in there, and it's just by category. But as far as printing, I do not print every month because I'm scrapbooking so much. I ended up printing from my printer. So I have to sometimes compare what I've printed and documented to what's actually on my phone. Like, I think I need to print back from August.
Okay. Okay.
So I'm a little
So
behind in that fact, but October, I'm doing an October daily. So I have to be able to crank these photos out like today.
right, right. So the digital photos then though, do you do anything with them other than just print them? Like do you have some sort of organization system for them, like on a computer or on a backup program, or you just literally camera roll and that's it?
Google Pic Photos. Google
Okay.
Photos organizes stuff, and you can search
Yeah.
by date or subject, even like
Yeah.
if it does like the facial recognition, I can
Yeah.
point to
Yeah.
my son and it picks up all of the photos of my son, which is pretty much all my camera roll.
Okay. Fair enough. Fair enough. I still am stuck in this. I don't trust everything. So I down everything onto my computer and I organize them by theme and event and all that kind of stuff. So, and I do have them backed up to Google Photo, and I do have them backed up, I think on the iPhone or Apple. So yeah, I've got photos everywhere, which is probably another part of my problem. I need to
Keep it simple.
streamline that process.
Keep it simple.
Well, the problem is, and again, this comes probably from more the fact that I am that much older than you. I did not fully convert to digital until 2010. So previous to 2010, I had film, negatives, all of that kind of stuff. So I converted those all to digital. So I have digital copies of all of that. So I was able to get rid of the film. But now, to upload these thousands and thousands and thousands literally of photos, like it would take days, if not weeks, to upload to like a Google photo or app or whatever. So I don't know. I don't have the solution. Maybe the viewers who are similar to me in my predicament have some suggestions for me on how to manage my photos.
Yeah, I hope so. You need all the help you can get.
Yeah, for sure. But we're going to talk more about what to do if you have a large number of photos and how to break them down to what you do print and don't print on Wednesday's call. We'll talk a little bit more about that. But let's talk about no photos. Do you have any stories where you have no photos at all?
Absolutely. So I recently documented, probably in the last year or two, I was late for my first day of senior year, and so was my brother.
Wow.
And we are in the same grade because I'm adopted. And so I didn't have a photo of that. So I just documented and I told the story, I used a school themed collection to help that. But yeah, I document with I don't have a photo.
Okay, that's cool. So look, you've already given some tips in your comments there. So we'll go into that a little more detail on Wednesday. But I have a lot of gaps in my childhood. So again, coming from being from the older generation, that sounds so terrible. We just didn't take a lot of photos, or we just didn't have them. And what you do have are pretty poor quality. So my parents did actually my dad actually went through and scanned all the photos that they had. So I do have digital copies of what is available. I know I'm getting an applaud from Nikki, from my father. So I do have those, but I haven't gone through them. And my dad did do a good job of organizing them. So he did put all the photos by person. So if you're in a photo, you have a copy of that in your directory or folder or whatever you want to call it. So that's good. But I don't have any information on any of the photos. Like, I don't know how old I was. I don't know where the photo was taken, that kind of thing. So it's going to take a little bit of an effort to kind of organize those and figure out what kind of strategy I want to do to use those. And then, of course, there's things that I remember, that stick in my brain from my childhood that I don't have photos for. So I definitely have a lot of those types of stories that haven't been documented yet. So that kind of leads into another category that I'm calling secondhand stories. So there's stories that impact you, but perhaps you weren't present, or you don't remember, right? So quite often from your childhood, your mom will tell you stories about, oh, you were such and such like a child, that kind of thing, but you don't remember because, of course, you were too young. So I would love to talk to my mom more about my childhood and what she remembers from me being a child, although we'll see how good her memory is, and document some of those things, because again, I don't have a baby book like most or often what happens down the scrapbooking world that people do for their children. I don't know when I had my first steps, or and I'm not saying that I need to document everything like that, but I would like to have a little bit of my mom's and my dad's reflections on when I was a child.
Yeah, I'm in a unique situation. So I grew up with my grandparents. Both of them now have passed away. My biological mom has passed away. And so all I have are memories from aunts and uncles of when I was little, or I was actually adopted by my aunt and uncle. So my aunts from 7th grade forward. So thankfully my grandma took a lot of photos, but I don't know the stories either.
Right. So what I thought would be interesting about that, because that's actually a different side point that I hadn't thought about, is what about if you have photos but don't know the story? So maybe we can come up with some strategies of what we can use those photos for. So
yeah,
something else to talk about on Nikki's channel. Boy, our conversation on your channel is going to be packed full of stuff, hopefully.
Seems like it.
We just have to remember to talk about all of these things. I'm sure the viewers will remind us if we miss something. So the last category of untold stories that I wanted to touch base on were stories that you just never thought about, and that seems like kind of a an odd saying, but I find that a lot of us tend to document similar stories over and over again. A lot of us, and I'm one of them, are event driven. So, when something happens, we take photos at that event and we document that event, and we record the who, what, where, when, maybe why. and that we don't always go any deeper than that. And so what I would pose is that perhaps there are stories around that could be more reflective in nature, or that we could explore a little bit differently than event-based. Does that make sense?
I think so. I am event-based too. I don't reflect very well. So that might be a little challenging.
It might be. But I've actually become this more. So I don't know. Like I said, maybe it's old age. I don't know. But, just thinking about things like past friendships, ones that at some point were so important to your life and these people have disappeared, why, and if they were important, what was important about it? Do you need to document that? No, maybe not. And maybe it's not something that you feel compelled to, which is fine. But maybe there is somebody that you are a little bit, I don't know, sad, but, disappointed maybe that relationship has disappeared, and that can say a lot about your life and how it, how it evolved or veered off to cause this relationship to no longer be there, as an example.
Yeah, that's a good example. I can think of several friendships that have kind of gone by the wayside. I wonder why that was,
Yeah. And just, what did they mean to your life? And how has that been replaced even, or isn't it? Do you have a void? The other thing is that we can think about the significance of things in our lives. If you grow up in a particular area, how did that factor into who you are today? Living in Canada versus living in the US, is very different, but yet there's very, very many similarities, right? And so that would be interesting to explore a little bit. And there is, something in there that in the telling tells more about who I am and, what I value and what is important to me.
You're in California now, right?
I am in California. Yeah. Yeah.
How long did you live in Canada?
Well, I lived there until I was 39.
Oh, okay. So US is recent.
Yeah. Yeah. 11 years, almost 12, I think. I don't know if the math works out, but it's somewhere around there. Somewhere in there.
Wow.
Yeah.
Yeah, that would be a very big difference.
Yeah, it is. But yet there's a lot of similarities. But I tell people, I said, so I moved to California, and I can't remember at the time when I moved here, the state of California had I don't know, 27 million people. Don't quote me on the numbers, you guys. I knew them at one point. I could be way off. The important part was that the entire country of Canada had less people than the state of California.
Oh my gosh. I did not know that.
Yeah. Yeah. So, you can appreciate that going from living in a city of under 1 million people to moving to a city of over 18 million people, that there are differences, but yet there is a lot of cultural similarity because of the close proximity of the two countries, and then the overlap of media and stuff like that, right? Like we're very, very interconnected. So it's interesting. It's interesting.
That is interesting. I have a lot of Canadian friends. That's so funny. And it's all through scrapbooking. You join all of these Facebook groups, and then you just hop on a call just to hop on a call, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
And you meet all of these people from across the country. That's why I love this community.
Yeah. And even that's a story in and of itself, right? You can talk about how the digital age has changed connecting with people throughout the world, and how that has exposed us to different relationships and stuff that we would have ever experienced. Take us, for example, right?
Right.
We would never have met except through digital content, basically.
Yep.
Yeah. So I would challenge that there are some untold stories there if you move outside the event based. Think about relationships, people that come into your life, go out of your life, but even think about the people that are in your life, and how they have influenced or impacted you, I guess is really what I'm trying to get at, right? So that it connects back to you. It's not just an autobiography of that person, but what does that person bring with them into your lives? Like how do they impact your life, I guess is what I'm trying to say. I'm a little bit rambly. You can tell I'm not very good at the whole, wordsmith kind of thing. But anyways, you get the idea. This type of style tends to be a little bit more word based, right? So a little bit more journaling than photo based. And I think for those of us that struggle with that aspect of it, this would be definitely a more challenging approach.
Yeah, I'm not a writer.
Me either. But I do find that the more you do it, again, practice, right, it does help. And I've also found that if I do it on the computer, just type whatever my thoughts are, then I can go back and edit it. That is much easier than to try and journal, directly onto a scrapbook page with writing, because I my thoughts just are like all over the place. So we need to
Yeah,
be a
and you
little
can
bit more.
control the sizing and the font and all that kind of stuff.
Exactly.
When
Yeah.
you're writing handwriting, you never know. Is it going to
Yeah.
even fit the space that I've allowed it
Yeah.
to?
Yeah. For sure. For sure. So I'm sure there are other untold stories out there, but those are kind of five-ish general categories that I came up with. So I'd love to hear from the viewers if they've got anything that they feel is an untold story that may be common to others or perhaps just to themselves. And maybe that will trigger some more ideas for some of us of things to document potentially outside of our normal process.
Yeah, so definitely check out my video on Wednesday where we talk about how to handle those 5 categories.
And until then, happy crafting, everyone.